The all-road bike. It's a bicycle that seems to promise to be your road bike, maybe your gravel bike, all kinds of things in between. Sounds too good to be true, doesn't it? Is it true? Is it all that and a bag of chips? Is it perhaps the road bike that most people who are riding road should be on? Or is it the two-wheeled equivalent of this? Well, in case you didn't recognize this little fella, this is a SPORK. Now, I have a feeling the SPORK was invented by the fast food people, so they could only give you one little plastic utensil in your little snack pack that went with your niblets that you got through the drive-thru. This is supposedly both a good spoon and a good fork. However, I think it ends up being neither. It's not a particularly good spoon and it's a fairly awful fork. And it, by the way, this is titanium, so extra points for having a titanium SPORK. It's out of my bike packing kit. This is the Turner Titanium All-Road Tie, otherwise known as ARTi. This is a fine example of the all-road genre. And I'm going to be taking a little bit of your time here to talk about what I think defines all-road. What in the world is an endurance bike these days? How this has been for me so far. This has been my primary road bike over the last month. Just how that has worked out. And then in the end, I'll venture a guess as to whether this type of bike is truly a legitimate bike for the masses on the road. Here we go. I think there are three things that define the all-road category. But before we get into all-road, let's talk about what I think is an identity crisis that the bike industry is having. Because what in the world happened to endurance bikes? What's an all-road? Is there a difference? Are they the same? I don't know. It seems to vary all over the map. For instance, David Turner, he's calling this an all-road. That's fine, but I can find something like the Giant Defy, the new one, is almost the same specs as this, same tire size, etc. And they call it an endurance bike. Call it whatever you want. I think that a bike by any other name would pedal just as sweetly. So since David Turner calls this an all-road bike, I'm going to go with that for the rest of this video. I think there are three things that define the genre of all-road bike. That is tire capacity, how big a tire can you fit, the geometry, how much grace it gives you when things get a little spicy, and gearing. How wide or how low is your gearing for those times that aren't, let's say, the normal road ride? Well, the ARTi clicks all of those boxes really well. Now, just the other day, I slipped the all-road shoes onto the ARTi's feet, so to speak. This is a 36 millimeter WTB Vulpin, and it is just a little bit less of a tire. You could fit a 38 in this. That's what David says is fine. But this is a pretty good choice. It actually measures to 37. Also, the geometry of the ARTi, it's a little longer, a little lower, a little slacker, and sits up just slightly higher than what you might consider a performance or race road bike to be. But it's also very close to a lot of other endurance bikes as well. Now, as far as the gearing, I'm running the SRAM Access on this. Now, David set it up with a 4633 chainring with a 1033 cassette for the road. However, on these all-road wheels that I set up, I went to a 1036 cassette. Just I think that matches better for what I would be doing with it if I was running these tires. And you know what? Kudos to SRAM. Because outside of GRX, which has its own derailleur and its own spacing and whatnot, SRAM is making chain rings for the masses. You know, when 5034 came out, when Shimano did the compact crank, that was for me. That makes a lot of sense for me. I don't need a 52 or 53 tooth big chain ring. That just doesn't fit my style, my power, and where I live. We just climb too many hills here, and I'm not interested in trying to put out that kind of watts. But SRAM, they've taken it even one step further with a 4835 option, this 4633, and if you really want to go down, they have I believe it's a 4330 crank that is a little wider spacing chain line. But still, between that and their wide range cassettes, They really are making road drivetrain for the people. So those three things, the tires, the geometry, and the gearing, you know what that allows you to do? It allows you to ride a road like this and have a lot of fun. This is an old abandoned road. It used to be the main road through the canyon until it washed out, and well, I guess it was easier to simply reroute and replace it away from the water than it was to fix it, I guess. So now it's a fine, old, desolate, falling apart kind of road experience that makes a lot of sense for an all-road bike. Now, could I ride my road bike on this? Yeah, I could. I'd have to tiptoe though. And you know what? Since something like a Conti GP5000 tubeless road tire is about 90 bucks, do you really want to cut it in here? No, you really don't. But something like these 36mm Vopens, that's a whole lot more tire working in your favor when things get a little rugged. And when you think about it, have you ever been on your road bike and you see those little meandering paths and you think, man, I wonder where does that go? But you look at it and you realize that, oh, that may not be so good for my road bike, and so you don't take it. You don't want to come back with your mountain bike, that would be silly. But on this ARTi, on this all-road tie right here, you can take that, you can take option B. I'll take the curtain, Monty. Now in the last month, I've been using the ARTi almost exclusively as my road bike. In fact, it has been my only road bike for the last month, maybe a little more. Now, I didn't have these wheels and tires on it. It came with a set of decent carbon wheels with some 32mm wide Schwalbes, good rolling tire. And I wondered, I pondered, I thought to myself, granny gear? Could this all-road bike in titanium with those tiny kind of chain ring and the 32mm wide road tire, really? Could that be a viable road bike for you? Because, you know, I do like a kind of sporty bike. Now, I'm not at the pointy end of the spear trying to, you know, kind of sprint for stop signs with the Peloton and all that type of stuff. No, that's not me. But I'm not an old boring guy, right? I want a bike that feels fun to ride, that's engaging. How has this been? Has it engaged me? Well, you know, it really has. This has not been a boring bike. I have enjoyed it thoroughly. The 32mm tires, man, that's the future. I'm telling you. I'm sure in the moment, somewhere, I am slower with those than I am with a 28, you know, just in that moment. But overall, my KOMs, my Strava times, my average speed, my ease of riding in the group has not suffered one bit with those 32mm tires. But holy smokes, are they comfortable and secure on roads, bad roads? Man, it's fabulous. Now the gearing. This gearing has been interesting. I find that it's adequate for me, and maybe even better than adequate, because I'm a diesel, so I tend to get in the big ring and I tend to kind of stay there. And I'll run all the way up to the second cog down from the cassette. I'll stay there a little bit, you know. And I just like that. Well, if I'm running a 50-tooth chain ring, I've got to run further up the cassette. I don't really want to cross completely over, you know, the far ends of things too much. It's kind of awkward. But with a 46, I can stay in the upper middle of the cassette instead of the very, very top, and then just shift down as I need to. And, you know, when the hill's over or whatever, I like to stand up and pedal. So for me, this 4633 is very, very good. And occasionally I feel like I'm slightly running out of top gear, but SRAM also makes a 4835 that is probably the sweet spot for me. And that's actually what I spec'd on my Time 80HX build, which is still in progress. Isn't that pretty down there? Isn't that amazing? There's still water here this late in the year. Anyway, I digress. Could I ride this as my only gravel bike? No, I don't think so. And I say that mostly because the tire limitation and where I live. Where I live, a 40 is about the minimum I'd want to run. I love a 42, and even a 45 is not out of the question. And since a 38 is about all you can put on this one, can't be my only gravel bike. I could put the gearing on it to be low enough, but not the tires. There's the rub. Literally. However, I'll bet you there's a whole lot of people and a whole lot of places where a 38mm tire is really pretty all you need for the gravel or dirt experience that you have. If there's smooth bridle paths, or if they're rails to trails, or just fairly nice dirt. We don't really have nice dirt here. It's not nice dirt. This would be really adequate. And the geometry is slack enough to where it gives you a little bit of grace. You don't feel sketchy under conditions like that. So let's answer the question finally and wrap this up. Is the all-road bike, as represented by this ARTi, but as a class, is it perhaps the bike that most riders who are on the road should be, or if not should be, certainly could be riding? I think it is. In many ways, that's what the endurance bike was. But I think if we can figure out this whole naming thing, the all-road bike maybe is endurance plus. Maybe it's endurance with privileges. I don't know. What's in a name? I know I'm certainly enjoying riding the ARTi. I'm riding it as a road bike, totally enjoyed it. Riding it as just a general exploration bike, very, very fun. Not my gravel bike, but that is what the Turner Cyclosis is for, which is coming up really next in the series of videos because I got to get out on that more. It's been so doggone hot here that I've been going and riding this along the coast just to cool off. Anyway, enough me rambling on. All right, you guys, have a really, really great week or weekend, however this finds you. Go ride your bikes as always. Live your lives. God bless.